What is up, everybody? Welcome here to HAP Film Panel for a movie discussion. So I had to bring the film panel back out. Had to bring the film panel back out. Um, you know, blow the dust off. The same thing we talked about with comrades last week, with blowing the dust off the mic. We're coming back with an episode. So the HAP Film Panel is back for the month of October because we are going to be talking about horror. And the first movie that we're going to be discussing this month is going to be Smile, that came out last year. Jake, how you doing, man? Say what's up to the people, man.
I've been doing all right, and been watching. In general, I guess I watch a lot of horror movies anyway, and but I didn't actually have time to watch Smile like back when it came out a year ago, and I kind of wish I would have did. It probably would have been a fun movie to see in theater. But other than that, and I'm glad with the film panel itself is the format is back because I love the format very much. It's a great format especially for the horror genre.
Of course, man. And it feels good. It feels great to have you back as well, man. As always. But we gotta get down to this, man. This was a movie, and great minds think alike. Because a year ago when this movie came out, I didn't see it. I heard about it. I heard it got some pretty great reviews. But when I saw the trailer, I thought it was a completely different movie than what it was when I saw this yesterday. I've only seen this movie once, and I watched it yesterday. It took me a whole year to even see this movie, just about. And I got to say, before we get down to the nitty gritty and the details, and what we liked about the movie, what we didn't like, things of that nature, I want to say about this movie is that at first I was sitting here thinking to myself like, I'm rocking with this movie because it's kind of leaping more towards the thriller part than the horror, and then at times you're leaning more towards the horror than the actual thriller-esque type of. Because I thought it was just gonna be a straight up, slasher type. That's what the trailer kind of gave off to me, like a psychological slasher. It was psychological a little bit, but not necessarily a slasher movie. This was straight up a psychological. I would say, wouldn't you probably agree? Psychological horror.
Yeah, very much.
This is more a movie where the concept of it, if you put this on paper and read this just as a script, you would think this movie came out in like the 70s or maybe early 80s, one of those experimental horror movies. But Jake, I don't know if you agree or not, but what did you think about pretty much the way this movie went in terms of your emotions and how you felt in terms of this being a horror movie?
I think you hit the nail on the head as far as it being a very psychological, and I guess any movie kind of like this where it deals with something that a character is experiencing but no one else is it's going to be a psychological horror. But I also really agree that it's more really of a thriller than I guess of just a pure kind of horror. It's and an emotion, and it's definitely. I think it actually deals more in. And the central theme of it, of course, is trauma, and how that can, kind of manifest into somebody's life, and sort of that's what the monster kind of is. Like it's literally a monster in this movie. Trauma is a monster that this person has to deal with, and without giving any spoilers about it, it's clearly hard for them to deal with, the monster itself.
Yeah, I kind of had trouble with that part because I didn't know if it was like a metaphorical thing, and then because with movies nowadays they go back and forth a lot to where it's kind of, you're like, oh, are they in it? Is this real? Is this not real? Is this really happening? Did she really kill this person? But like you said, man, it was a more of a metaphorical monster, psychologically for the character Rose, and you pretty much start this movie out that way. Is that she's chilling, she's at work, she's a therapist, that works in a what would you call that place? Like I don't want to be completely rude to just say loony bin, but
psych ward, I think is what you would call
psych ward.
It. Yeah, terminology.
And so she works at she's a therapist at a psych ward, and one of her patients kills himself right in front of her, and At first, I thought that when this happens, every time that you're gonna see somebody die, it would be like in a smile, like they would curve it like a smile, but that
Hmm.
wasn't really the case. Um, but she sees this happen, and then she just starts freaking out, and then from there, that's where the movie just takes off, where you're seeing nothing but people smiling, and then you're playing. It's a
Hmm.
whole mind game. It feels like.
It's such a grotesque kind of way too. Like the whole idea of the smile itself is really grotesque. Just well, like it looks like because it's kind of like like I think symbolically it's talking about how every day, you can meet someone who's got like who can paint a big smile on their face, and how that just kind of like you never know what's going on behind it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And that's sort of what trauma, I guess, is kind of represented here. It's just kind of like, and the fact that it always ends in sort of a, you know, an unaliving of the self, we shall say, so we don't get demonetized on YouTube. But and then that carries over to the person, the next person, always.
And they call
And
it a chain, right?
yeah,
Like what
it's
the dude, because at first what I had to rewind a little bit when the dude in the inmate, the guy that the black dude that saw the other killing,
mhm.
and then and he said chain, and I had to rewind it back. I was like, is it like a physical chain? He was talking about like the metaphorical train. I mean chain, and that's what he was talking about. He was talking about the metaphorical chain, like
Yeah,
just in the head.
exactly. Just the chain of events that kind of add up, and I think it's a good way of like, well, it's like a link in the chain. You become the next link unless you kind of break it, break from it by doing something like he killed a person.
Hmm.
Like you either like I think that's what it is. He said he got away with it because he did something,
Hmm.
and again, that's the only way he was able to escape it. And then I'm wondering if if it stopped there, then that means it would have had to go back down the line or something. Like it would have had
Yeah,
to find something else.
because he said that the chain broke. Where did he say it was? Like somewhere in South America or somewhere he was visiting. He said like the chain broke, and then it was picked up because the dude killed his neighbor's wife or something like that.
Yeah, and
And
then
then he started freaking out uh, because I guess he found out because remember he said about the patient. He was like, "Well, I hope your patient." I forgot what he said about her patient because she said, "Oh yeah, her friend or whatever." And then he starts freaking out because he realized it's her.
yeah, he's got it. She's
You know.
got it with him, and he starts like freaking out, like, whew, like that movie's kind of rough because of that, because of what they go through. Like it's definitely like, and then you wonder if that even happened too. Like you even wonder if that conversation happened.
Yep. Yep. Hey, what's up, Jaron? Jaron says, "Sup, fellas."
Everything. So
Nothing much, man. Reviewing reviewing Smile from last year. Uh a horror movie that I heard great reviews about. A horror movie that, I even heard even word of mouth how good this movie was. I watched it. It did not necessarily like I don't want to burst anybody's bubble, but it didn't really live up to the high expectations that some people gave it that I thought it would be, but it's still a good movie. It's still a solid
yeah,
movie. Um, Again, like I said, this definitely reminds me of a movie of a concept that would have happened in like the 70s horror era, maybe even the early 80s. Hell, I would probably Jake, maybe I would probably even go to mid or late 80s probably because I mean people were
yeah.
still testing out horror movies like crazy in the 80s. I mean, you think about what Chopping Mall that was 80s, right? I remember seeing that as a kid.
It was, yeah, because it was like just that, and I agree and I think you hit the nail on the head too about that kind of '80s, like that's the mindset like of what wrote the movie and the inspiration.
Yeah.
It has that kind of like because and that actually goes like it's a other side. Well, psychological horror I think really peaked in the '80s in a lot of ways. Like it seemed like so many big movies at the time were dealing more with like, well, the horrors of the mind.
Hmm.
Um, The Shining was one. I think, and there's a few others. But yeah, exactly. It has that kind of, and just, the music itself. Some about the aesthetic that and the soundtrack feels very kind of that 80s synth, just kind of like Nightmare on Elm Street is 100% psychological horror. 100%. I don't care what anyone says.
Really? You would say that?
I'd say that. Like, if it's in the dream, it's in their head, it's got to be psychological horror.
But they're really dying, though.
That's true. And but it just like it Smile, they're also dying too. And I think it's kind of the same thing. It's just using your fears to torture you. To me, I think that's really like at the core of psychological horror. It's always using your I've been thinking a lot about this lately too, about how much we can associate because a lot of horror is psychological. I'd say the scariest horror is psychological. I'm even pretty sure you would say like It, Pennywise, he was messing with those kids by coming at them with their fears, making them see shit, making them kind of it's all in their heads. It's all like, you're torturing them with their past memories, stuff that ain't really there, or maybe stuff that is there, but you can see it. And then I was thinking and I just got that Nightmare on Elm Street told what kind of psychological horror too, and that's where I think I get the 80s vibe too when I think of Smile, because it's like, one of the most popular, of all time, so a horror franchise of all time was definitely had that psychological element to it.
I want to touch on something you said, Jake. You said that you think that the scariest horror could be psychological.
Maybe that is fear is subjective. I'll admit that.
All right, well, that's true. That's true. Because people can be scared of different things. Because for me, it would be the slasher. To me, it's the scariest you can get is slasher, man. But the thing is, we haven't. This generation now has not been able to experience any new movies like that. I mean, you could probably say, I think the closest that we've gotten to that is maybe parts of Cabin Fever. I mean, do you remember seeing that movie? Have you seen Cabin Fever?
Yeah, well, the old one with Sean from Boy Meets World.
Yeah. You know, the 80s one, right?
Wait, was it in the 80s?
Was it 80s?
Cabin Fever?
Oh, shit. No, not Cabin Fever. God damn it. I'm sorry. Not Cabin Fever. Cabin in the Woods.
Cabin in the Woods was 100% like paying so much homage.
Holy shit, man. I was like, wait a minute. Oh, yeah. That's the funny thing about it, though, is so many cabins in the horror genre, man. Like,
it's so many. Oh, I can name a dozen off the top of my head, but to keep it simple, yeah, Cabin in the Woods was a love letter to I feel like the 1980s era. You talk about Friday the 13th, Evil Dead,
a little Evil Dead in there too.
All of it, and then we could, maybe we need to talk about that movie sometime this month too. We could do a whole review on that movie, 100%.
There's so many layers to that movie, though. Like, you're talking about cult shit. Like, there's so much stuff to that movie, and in a way, it ends where it is the end of the world. Like, the whole world ends at the end of that movie. Like, they gave 0 fucks. But here in Smile, I will say this: the kill count in this movie is very low. Yeah. Very low.
Very low.
See, I thought we were gonna have at least a higher kill count, maybe 7 or 8 people. Not even close. I think maybe we saw three deaths,
including a cat. Cat died.
But we didn't see it though. Well, obviously we didn't see it. I hope you wouldn't see the actual death. But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I guess we can count that. Yeah, count that as a kill count.
Might as well.
But I would say that was really. I thought that was in her head as well.
For a minute, I did too. Yeah, for a minute too. I thought it was like, and you're right about that because that's the thing. Like, you don't even know what really happened either because even when she like, remember, in the scene, she after she talked to dude who was in prison, she figured she got desperate, and then yeah, you remember that, remember it, and then no spoilers, but then it's no,
Don't
that
go
wasn't
away,
real.
go away.
Ah,
Let
it's
it
just
all out.
I gotta admit, I was kind of laughing at that particular scene. I thought it was funny. Just when that's the only time I laughed.
But you know what I really liked about this movie too is that when you got into, because I already knew this was gonna get personal with Rose, right? We knew that this was personally affecting Rose, or I guess more of a in effect from her past, personally, right? So I knew they were gonna go there. So I didn't know that it was gonna be the mom. I figured it would be, I don't know anything else, but it was the mom, and then they didn't go too much into detail as to exactly how the mom abused her. I guess neglect is because of her drug use. That part I kind of got confused on.
Yeah. It was actually, well, that's the thing. It actually uses that to build suspense because you don't know exactly what happened until you know the finale where it actually kind of plays out before you.
Mm-hmm.
It was also not, it wasn't abuse as much as it is like finding her parent, you know, like dead. I think it was really just like she had seen something, happen to her mom. Her mom had like, you know, you know, I actually, and I definitely kind of forget exactly what it was that her mom like that killed her. But you can imagine that's
Well, yeah,
enough trauma.
but you remember the mom asked for her to get the phone to call the ambulance or whatever, and she didn't do it. Because
Mm,
remember, she admitted to the monster. She was like, "I'm sorry, I was only 10 years old, um, and I wanted you to die. I wanted you to go away because I didn't want you to, treat me the way you did anymore."
yeah,
And then that's when she turned into the monster.
yeah.
But I don't know exactly what the abuse was. I mean, again, maybe I don't want to know because I don't really like to go into like other people's traumas and shit like that too much when it
Yeah,
comes to movies because
it's
it's supposed
better.
to be
It's better.
fictional. But
Yeah,
um, it look, I I would say with horror movies, I do like how they are diving more into the psychological stuff, but I feel like horror movies have dialed so much back with the slasher stuff because I feel like the psychological stuff is more relevant to real life than the slasher stuff. Um,
true. Yeah.
make slasher movies great again. That's all I'm gonna say, man. Yeah, that's
Please,
the best way. Make slasher
dude,
movies great.
please. I mean, we want it. We're desperate for new, better slashers.
Yeah.
And I really think it's about the well, the way horror conventions especially emulate the fears of the time. In the 30s, people were afraid of things that were impossible. Things that were unholy, like a vampire with Dracula, or someone playing God with Frankenstein and creating a monster. And then in the 50s, it was all about aliens. Like everyone was scared of like Earth being invaded. And then it seemed like in the 70s when you started getting really into like, with Halloween, we started, and even the 80s too, it bled into the 80s. We were scared of serial killers because there was a lot of like crazy shit. That's when all the
Mhm.
well-known serial killers of, in
Yep.
America
80s
started,
and 90s. Oh, well, 70s as well. Because remember Texas Chainsaw Massacre, when that movie first came out, it was like the first real like slasher, like
it was,
real horror movie where people, and I didn't notice until like a couple years ago. Like I was well into my adult life where I found out where Texas Chainsaw Massacre like had a huge effect on society in America because it
mhm,
was the first like real scary movie that people have seen in theaters where it kind of like they feel like it could happen in real life.
yep.
Um, I didn't know that. It was a real shocker because I saw that movie way back when as a kid and watched it again later in my teens and then again. Very classic movie. I love it, and it's actually scary.
Mm,
um, but when I mean, not like a ooh boo got you, but it's an actual like the whole element of that movie is scary. Um,
it's like
and
these are real people. You know,
yeah,
if it, someone like I think James Rolfe, Cinemassacre said it looks like it was filmed with a camera that anyone could own, like it's a snuff film almost,
mm-hmm.
and that gives it a very realistic look. And it looks, and these people aren't like super like there's nothing like they're normal human beings, but they're so deranged and so like these are what real psychopaths would be like, and
Yep.
that's how I would imagine.
Yeah, and I remember back in the 70s they had this whole abduction thing too. Like this it was like this big abduction craze that was happening all over the country too. So that
Yeah,
and maybe the 80s too. But I know 70s was definitely like that whole era was just people were going missing left and right. In terms of like teenagers and college age people. It was crazy. Um
well,
so later on in this movie, you see Rose and she's just burning all the bridges and all her relationships. This was the part where at the time where it's happening, I still wasn't really understanding why she was acting the way she was towards the people that she claimed she loved. And then again, going back to the one word that all the directors and producers want to use nowadays, trauma. Um, it all traced back to that whole trauma and neglect that she felt with her mom and the abuse and all that other stuff, the emotional abuse.
yeah,
And you go back to the way she treated her. It was her boyfriend, right? The black dude, the dude that plays A
yeah.
Train and Boys. That's her what boyfriend or husband? Boyfriend.
They were
And then
fiance, yeah.
you had her sister and her husband. Jesus Christ, man, I hated her sister, bro. Her sister was a fucking cunt, man.
hmm
I tell you.
And then it's like I don't know. And then I'll give her credit though. She did have one of the best, one of the most unexpected, kind of moments that got, like me and my girlfriend was watching it, and that's the scene with the car and the window.
Oh yeah,
That
yeah.
that 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 got us both. We was like, "Oh, damn, that was that was good.
Yeah, I was watching this during the daytime, so I had a little bit of a lighter environment when watching it.
Yeah, exactly. It's still a good like, and that's and
You had a
like
couple of good jump scares, man.
it's hard to do a good jump scare, and then actually be not like cheap. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I mean, something about it kind of hinted at just the way. Okay, the way she's coming to the car, something's off, something's weird. But then you still don't expect what's gonna happen. You feel like she's just gonna lean down and have that smile or whatever. But then, just
Yeah.
it's something you see something totally like unexpected. Ugh, that was painful.
Yep. I look, man. I like the jump scares in this one, but what I really like the most, to be honest, my when I say it's my favorite scene, yeah, I would say my favorite scene is that first one. Is where she's sitting there and the chick is in that room and she killed herself because that's when you know, all right, I'm in for this movie. Because at first I was kind of skeptical. Again, I'm going into this movie with high expectations.
Yeah,
Um, and the expectations, I wouldn't say the high expectations were met, but it's still a solid movie at the end of the
yeah,
day. But that beginning part does kind of get you hooked because now you're trying to figure out, okay, why did the chick kill herself? Why did she slice her neck and her face in the way of a smiley? I will say this too: the cinematography in the movie is really good. You go
excellent.
back to because remember when the wife of the dude that killed himself was talking, and then
Mhm.
they kept flashing back to his body and
Yeah,
just the little small little details where she said, 25 years of marriage, and that's the last thing, that's the last memory you leave me with is his face like that. And I'm thinking about, and she's sitting there crying and bawling, and you could kind of feel the emotion in her words as she's saying all this. She's saying, "Look, man, this is the last memory I have of 25 years of marriage with this guy. Is his face messed up, demented. And then old girl rolls up in there and she's like, "Yo, it wasn't an accident. This was not coincidental. Like this was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
This was a chain of events." And she wasn't having it.
Yeah.
she called her crazy. That part I didn't kind of understand, where she kind of flipped because she was very emotional, very vulnerable, and then all of a sudden they just make her defensive and I get you had to do that for dramatization and all that other stuff, but questionable things, man. Questionable things that happened in this was just the automatically just burning of relationships.
Automatic, yeah. There's a lot of little instances like that where you can actually really kind of pick at it, and you'll find little plot holes because, well, technically, wouldn't the guy's wife, the one that saw that grotesque face,
Want to know the
wouldn't
truth?
well, wouldn't it passed on to her? Like, why is she alive?
Oh, but did she had to have seen it though? Did she see him kill himself?
But who saw him though?
It would have had to have been the next person, and I think maybe that person that killed themselves, that saw him kill himself, was also the person that the first girl that killed herself at the beginning of the movie probably saw that person die.
Maybe
could have been, but again, this movie does not explain that. They don't explain the entire chain.
No, they don't. They don't really take enough time to really kind of flesh those things out. And they just kind of leave it up in the air. And I guess that's not the worst thing about the movie, but I still felt like that there was room for that.
I like the casting of this movie too.
Mm-hmm.
The casting to me was great. The lady who plays the therapist. Actually, you know what? Speaking of the therapist, I think I found my favorite scene. Was the one where she's sitting on the couch. And remember, she kept getting the call from the therapist. She's sitting on the couch with the therapist. And then she gets a call from the same lady that's my favorite scene. I forgot about that because that's when she starts screaming and she's going down the steps and then that she's still smiling, walking over that's my favorite scene, actually. I'll go with that one.
Scene. It's a good scene that catches you off guard.
Facts. But before I get to your favorite scene, Jake, I want to touch on this very briefly. Did you know that the main character, the chick who plays the main character, is Kevin Bacon's daughter?
Girlfriend pointed it out. I didn't know that though. She looked familiar. Something about her was just so familiar, but I couldn't pinpoint it. It's like her name's Bacon, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that's Kevin Bacon's daughter." I was like, "It is." Oh, that makes sense. Love Kevin Bacon too. He's a great actor.
Yeah, that's old Bacon's daughter, and
she's good.
She's really good. I actually saw her in a few because she did look familiar, but I didn't know she was Kevin Bacon's daughter until I looked up the name. And then because I remember seeing her back when 13's Reason Why came out, and I was in that whole phase, and I watched that show, and she was in it. She's actually the same age as us. She looks way older than 30, but she's actually only 30.
Yeah.
She looks like she could pass as 40 in this movie. I don't know. Maybe it was the makeup and stuff, or maybe she just naturally looks 40.
A little older.
But I mean, I'm not saying she looks bad at all. I mean, she's definitely wood. She's a wood.
She's a wood.
But she definitely looks like she could definitely be past as middle age easily.
Yeah.
Or close to it. I wouldn't necessarily middle age, but close to it.
As I don't know, and so people really do age differently. I think depending on, genes
Women.
And I think, oh yeah, for sure.
They age faster.
Oh God bless them. And no, she did great in this scene, and she's done some other. She's been in a lot of movies that I can remember. She's been in a lot of shows too. I forget which one I've seen her in, but she was real young in it too. But she was good in that one, and I would love to. And that's one thing about this movie that it kind of I feel like she was so good in it that if they ever did a sequel, she would actually be missed. You know what I mean? I mean, she kind of she. The thing about it is that it was such a good performance, but I felt like she, it's not the same as like I was kind of hoping she would have a similar story arc to, like Nancy and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, okay.
I want to see her go to war with this thing. Try to like she's getting stressed, but she's got to start because you remember how it ended up with Nancy. She can't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
She's like losing it, but she starts like figuring it out.
Yep.
Okay, this can hurt it, and I felt like the movie kind of ended before it could really kind of get into that, and I felt like that was a thing. But it was, I guess, it wasn't supposed to be that. It was supposed to be, I guess, more serious. Maybe it was, especially to kind of it ends on a bit of a bummer note, like a really terrifying note. I'd even say this movie's scarier for that too. It's a scary movie for it.
The ending was weird for me. And the reason why I say that is because I don't know if did she actually kill herself or did she not? Was this fucking psychological?
Yeah.
And to add on a casting note, the therapist she's the lawyer from Sons of Anarchy, one of my favorite shows ever. So I easily pointed that one out. So that's a dub in casting for me for that one. Kyle Gallner, who played the ex-boyfriend. You had the dude that plays A-Train
Mhm.
as the actual boyfriend. I mean, again, the casting in this movie was phenomenal for what it was.
Yeah.
Knocked it out of the park. But
It's
to
a
go
real
back to
movie.
that ending was again, I'm so sick and tired of this when it comes to horror movies at this point. I'm like, we need a definitive ending, and then you do the cliffhanger, like where it's clearly a fucking cliffhanger. This was not a clear cliffhanger, because this is a psychological movie. I think with psychological movies, psychological thrillers, stop giving us fucking cliffhangers. Stop
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Have the
Because now
cojones to
I
end it.
legit don't know the ending. I don't want to go and look up on Google or go to YouTube and watch somebody else give a theory on it. Like, I want to fucking know. Was this the ending? Did she kill herself? Because I believe Smile is getting a sequel. I don't know if it's going to be related to the first one in terms of characters.
Yeah,
If anybody's coming back, you would think Kyle Gallner, um, because he's the last person you see in the movie. He's the one that witnesses her killing herself. That's the whole point of the movie, is that they don't kill the other people; they kill themselves.
yeah.
Um, and I want to ask you a question about this too. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they made that the stipulation of this movie, is that they kill themselves rather than going out and killing someone else?
This, I mean, thematically, you could tie it in with the whole trauma thing because, yeah, and it does make sense in that context. But at the same time, the way it ties in, and I watched a few people talk about it too on YouTube, and they kind of make some good points. That it's a bummer ending because there's really just no hope in that case. Like, because you've seen how the ending progress, like she kind of defeats the monster, and then she opens up and says, "I'm sorry that I've just kind of been doing all this." But then it turns out it was a whole thing was an illusion,
Yeah.
and she's screwed, and it's just like you're screwed pretty much, And it kind of reminded me a little bit of The Ring, but not in a good way, because I remember The Ring kind of had that same kind of gotcha ending, like, but that one made sense because it's like, and that's another movie I'd like to talk about sometime, and without getting too far off topic, that ending felt earned, if that's the right way to put it. I felt like this ending was rushed
Yeah.
and didn't feel really earned. It didn't feel like it made a lot of sense to me.
If I could play devil's advocate, I would probably say that once, and guys, please forgive me with Kyle Garner's character's name, but I'm just keep calling Kyle Garner because Kyle Garner's a badass.
It's
It's Kyle Garner.
Calgon. Yeah.
Um, and if you guys don't know it, he's from the reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street. I think that's like the most famous thing he's done, but I've seen him in he's in a bunch of projects I love. Um, Great horror guy, but a great actor altogether. To be honest, all around. Hopefully, he does get a big role someday, like a really big role, because he's an amazing actor. Now, um, once he starts to smile at the end of the movie, that's my devil advocate point of this is maybe they can get away with saying that this was a cliffhanger because remember he looks up. You think she's safe. She's like, oh, it's a monster. I got him. He was in my head. Blah, blah blah whatever. And then he looks up and then he does that smile, and it's like, okay, maybe that could be okay, hinting this is clearly a hangover. I say hangover, cliffhanger. But I don't know, man. I don't. Again, it was way too rushed. Like normally when you do a cliffhanger, it's after the event and like a little more time after the event, not right after that event in the same fucking space. I mean, she was in the same house, same room, and a dude just looks up, smiles, and then she opens up the matchbox, lights the match, and then that's the
Yeah.
end of the movie. I mean, like,
Exactly.
well, not the end of the movie. You hear her actually set herself on fire,
Yeah.
and then
But
you
that would
see
have,
Calvin's face.
yes, that would have been such a more interesting way to do that. I agree with that because it's just like, that to me, that's the
No,
best way.
that's what happened though. That you hear, well, you don't see it, but you hear her set herself on fire.
Yeah.
So remember at the very end.
At the very, very end, you don't lay eyes on it. You just see the smile and the match light, and then it's just his reaction. And it's
Yeah,
just it leaves you on that note. And another thing is like, but I was thinking like, of course, like I'm not saying if I had to do it over again, I would just kind of like leave you with the note that you know you can't really get away from the trauma. That's the whole really the whole kind of theme that I felt like was at play because you can't get rid of it. You just have to learn to live with it. It's kind of like a perfect thing was like at the end of It Follows, where it's like after everything, I think they've killed it, but they don't know. They can never know. And then they're just walking down the street, and then it cuts to just a brief little shot, and all you see is something or someone walking behind them.
mm-hmm.
And then that's all you need to make us think, well, oh shit, you know. And I felt like imagine if it ended with, like you said, Kyle Garner, just kind of like she tells him, and then it's kind of like they just kind of settle down, and then like it's coming to an end,
And then
and then
go
you just
completely somewhere else or go to the next day, and then
mhm.
because that's a clear cliffhanger. Whether it's a psychological thriller or whether it's a slasher or whether it's a fucking what was those movies that Mark Platt tried to put me on, those fucking naked women, like sex and horror, which is like a
Yeah,
terrible fucking idea. But
it's
like it doesn't
terrible.
matter what kind of horror movie. It could be a comedy horror, like I forget the name, but you guys know we
Yeah,
reviewed a lot of fucking movies in the past few years. But
yeah,
no matter what the horror is, if you're gonna do a cliffhanger, at least make it a clear cliffhanger. Let it. I'm not saying like, hey guys, let's dance to the keys in front of the monkey. Not like that. But I mean, bro, don't make it to where we literally don't know. I could see if this was the first movie to do that, but they keep doing this with all these movies.
yeah. Exactly, because I feel like that's already been run into the ground. Like it's always these kind of like it has to like end in this, like you said, this crazy kind of thing, like because they're so scared that no one will, and really it's sequel bait. That's really why they do that. It's sequel bait. A cliffhanger, it to me isn't always a sequel bait. It just kind of leaves you with a eerie little note to think about. Are they safe? Is the monster gone? It's kind of like the perfect, it's like how Halloween always, ended. The whole thing is to like sequel bait.
Yeah.
It's just to sort of knock you on your ass thinking, what the fuck? what is this guy? This is everything. It's supposed to make you think everything you thought you knew going in and make you rethink it all. You know what I mean? That's what a good cliffhanger is, because you're hanging on a cliff. It's like, holy shit, Or maybe I'm using the wrong terminology. I just feel like horror always has never. A good horror movie never really kills the monster. You know what I mean? Like Freddy Krueger reaching in and pulling the mom into the door. You don't know you don't know if she's dreaming or not dreaming anymore at this point. To me, that's a perfect ending too. But Smile didn't need that kind of even more subtle, creepy ending, and not just a violent, arson. Clearly, yeah, like you said, it's clearly going to continue, probably because it's definitely going to be a sequel. It made a bunch of money, but I would have liked to have seen it to where, like you said, it cuts to the next day. She's living her life. She thinks it's good, and maybe her and Ryan Garner got back together, and then watch her backs turn. All you have to see is Ryan just smile, just cut, and it would have been like, oh, this thing, just I thought that something like that would have been more. It would have creeped me out. You know what I mean? Instead of just just burn the whole house down and guarantee a sequel.
Agree or disagree? We could have used a little more of the monster.
A little more of the monster, maybe. Yeah, we only got to see it at the very end for maybe 20 seconds, if that.
Would you? But do you think that they did that purposely to kind of keep the special element of the monster? Because I thought the monster looked actually pretty cool. You still had them in the mom's clothes, so it still had that element of fear, right? Because we're still dealing with,
fear,
trauma.
Yeah, trauma.
So, yeah, I hate saying it. It's overused like crazy, so it's kind of weird me saying it. But I mean, that's what it is. Trauma that she's dealing with. So, the trauma monster. That's what they should have called this movie, but that's a whole. But yeah, I think they're looking to use that monster again, maybe in the next one. I guess kind of to be that illusion to every victim that they have. I think it's pretty cool. That's why I put the background the way it is, because I did dig the whole where it opened up its mouth and you had all the other teeth, and that was pretty cool, man.
It was
creepy.
Cool. It was creepy. It was such a shocking. I agree with you. Probably, that you seeing it for that little brief time, it's more jarring. And I'm glad they didn't show that in the trailer either, because it actually really was scarier. Yeah, I mean, that's just, ooh, what a ugly thing. It's terrifying to look at. And honestly, but it's kind of like the whole problem, when you see something, you become less scared of it. It's kind of like the xenomorph alien was one of the scariest things if you had never seen it before. Mm-hmm. But it's so popular now, it's it's not even scary anymore,
Before I get to your, I'm eventually going to get to your favorite scene of the movie. But before I get to your favorite scene of the movie, I do want to ask you this again to go back to the psychological thing with Nightmare on Elm Street, because you said Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is a psychological horror. Freddy versus Jason, what would you say that is? Slasher or psychological horror?
Both a clusterfuck. It is just a crazy movie that I love. I love that movie. And that movie was really kind of what got me into Freddy and Jason kind of in the first place. It come out and I was and I had to catch, I was obsessed with Freddy and Jason, Freddy, and watching all the, and the fact that they were replaying all the movies on AMC or Spike TV. That's how I got introduced to those guys.
That's exactly how. So I think I saw Freddy vs. Jason for the first time on Sci-Fi, on the Sci-Fi channel.
Mm-hmm.
Back when I don't even know if that's even still a channel now, but back when it was a channel, that's when I first saw the movie.
Yeah, Oh,
So of course they edited out all the sex scenes and all the cussing and everything. Which
all the
then I eventually
super
saw
brutal
the
kills.
actual movie, which was obviously way better, 10 times better than the edited version.
Yeah, agreed. And then it was such, but I miss like when movies were fun like that too. Though, like like that was like a movie they had been building up for so long, and apparently they were going to do more with it too. Like that was going to like bring Evil Dead into it. That was going to
They're going to be trying to bring Michael Myers into it as well.
yeah. Oh, I heard this. I heard the original ending for Freddy versus Jason was planned to be like Freddy and Jason like are like fighting to the death, and it finally kind of ends with them both bloodied, and then they're just kind of having a standoff, and then in the middle, it's the contraption that, and then whoa, it's Pinhead, and he just says, "Gentlemen, what seems to be the problem?" And that was supposed to be the ending. Like they were gonna set that up.
They're supposed to put so many fucking people. Uh, it's crazy. It's crazy. I've heard so many things about the Freddy versus Jason, like because it was a success. I don't know if it was a box office success, but it was definitely a success in terms of like a cult. Like it still has a big following. That movie.
Yeah. It was mostly a rights problem, I heard, because
Yeah.
it was like, because then like it's the same problem we're dealing with now. Like remember when the video game had a lot of
Yeah.
lawsuits happening? It's mainly with Jason. There's so much
Yeah.
kind of
Friday
law.
13th.
Just all that has been in such a legal battle for 20 years now, and it's not ending until either Victor Salva dies or Sean Cunningham dies. It's between those two, and that's the reason why we don't get no Jason anymore.
That's why I tell everybody, you better be thankful that we got that movie that we did. Was it 10 or 15 years ago? That
Yep.
remake that people shit on all the time. Because to me, that movie was. You can say whatever you want. I really love that movie. It was my first introduction to a solo Jason movie, and oh my god, man! I remember seeing that movie in theater. I saw that movie in theaters, man. In
I bet
theaters,
that
I
was
was.
awesome,
Oh my gosh!
dude.
Talk about
And
nostalgia, bro.
dude, that movie is so nostalgic too. I love
Slash.
it.
Hey, Smile is a good movie, guys. But slashes all day, bruh. Slashes all day, bruh.
Bruh, I got such a soft spot for the genre too. Just because they got such the icons, like they got the icons, and that I just don't think. Well, psychological horror can never really have an icon because it's psychological horror because it's
Yeah.
always different. And I hope that's not what they're going with for Smile. There's going to
Actually,
be
wait. Not to cut you off, but to cut you off. Go back to
okay.
what you just said. A
Um.
psychological horror can't have an icon. But we just talked
Oh my
about
God! You
A
just
Nightmare on Elm Street.
okay. I just did a mental loop there. All right. I am totally wrong on that part. What? Never mind that. It's either it's
Now we got to have a discussion. Pinhead? The Hellraiser movies?
yeah,
Psychological?
psychological. Maybe. Okay, I'll admit, broski. It's hard. I don't know. Like I'm still figuring it out. I can't. I'm making. It's got psychological elements, and I guess technically, Freddy is a psychological horror, but at the same time, he's not. But then at
He's
the same time,
slasher icon. Because you want to know why? You want to know
Flash.
why I say he's a slasher icon? Because you see T-shirts everywhere, you see posters, you see who do they always put together? At least Freddy, Jason, Michael. Sometimes people will put Freddy in front of Michael Myers, which I never understood because I mean, even though Michael doesn't talk, he's still 10 times better than Freddy Krueger.
Oh
That's
yeah.
my own personal opinion.
Oh yeah.
I would say that's a bit of a biased opinion just because of how high regard I hold the character of Michael Myers. But some people would actually put Freddy Krueger in front of Michael Myers in terms of horror icons, and we all know slasher is the way to go.
You technically
Leatherface
would.
as well. That's 4.
Yeah. For I tell you what, wouldn't maybe it makes more sense that Freddy is supernatural, I guess it really would say he's a supernatural kind of slasher. And really, I think all of them have some supernatural element, but they also got psychological. But you know what I'm saying. It's just
Yeah.
you would the way Freddy comes at you is it's all in your dreams.
Psychological. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Again,
then
I'm not saying you're wrong. You know me. I was just like, look, I think it's slasher, man, because I like,
it's a,
I'm
it's a
biased.
psychological slasher horror icon. And at this point, I think we just have to call, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
Hey, what would you say about this is a real good one, actually. What would you say about Jigsaw?
Hmm, that's an interesting one too, because it too has
Because he
psych-
uses traps.
based on a person's,
Yes,
kind
and
of.
psychological. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's very psychological horror too. Very psychological. And I'm so sick. I'm almost tired of saying the word psychological. But it really is like, and I think horror itself is always going to have a psychological element because now it's like that one clip from Smiling Friends. The only thing scarier out there is what's the unknown in here. The unknown outside and the unknown inside. And and I definitely think it's like, and go back to the father of slasher movies, Psycho itself. Remember, that too was all about like a guy who's, you
His
know,
mental state,
yeah, and really like we're kind of, and this is the way kind of horror's then evolved. Kind of, if it's real, like if it's something realistic, like with realism, it's like kind of like it's always gonna have that mental, it's always about somebody's mentality. Or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they're all crazy. Norman Bates, you don't
Literally.
know that he's crazy until the very end.
Mhm.
And then Michael Myers, you don't know why he's crazy. You don't get any reason why. You're just left to wonder what's going on in his head.
I wish they would have kept that for Freddy's character too.
Yeah.
I wish they would have kept that um, kept everybody guessing as to why he is what he is and why he's the way he is. But I want to ask you, what was your favorite scene in this movie?
My favorite scene in Smile is well, the runner up I would have to say is probably the what would be a good runner up. I think the beginning, like I really do think it was a perfect way to start the movie because like you said, it really like makes us wonder what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
But I
That's
think
that's one of the things I look for in movies now. I'm just like how, especially when it's a movie that I'm somewhat interested in, but I'm not too fully invested in. And this was one of those movies. I was like, well, this is a perfect way. I'm glad you picked it because it was a perfect way for me to actually watch it because it was a movie that I've been meaning to watch. But it's one of those movies where it's like, I'll watch it. I hear it's good. I'll watch it. Eventually. It's kind of like how One Piece is with Netflix. Like I keep hearing great things about it, but I'm like, it's also an anime live action adaptation, so I'll get to it eventually. It's one of those things. So I'm glad you picked this movie because I mean I ended up liking it. But
yeah,
like you said, like it's one of those things where it's how am I going to get even more invested to this? Like what's going to make me say, I'm going to buckle up the seatbelt and I'm in for this ride. And that's what the first scene did for me.
exactly, and that's what to me every movie needs to do that. What you've got the first 10 minutes. I think there was an old saying like Alfred Hitchcock said, if I can't hook you in the first reel, you're not yeah, no one's gonna stick around for the next 15. If you can't get them in the first 15 minutes, you're not getting them the rest of the hour and a half. And so I really do probably give every movie about 15 minutes for that reason. Just like this is your chance. Show me what you got. And so, and this opening definitely, I mean, and very bloody fashion. It hooks you. It really, like, you want to know why the hell did this girl do this? What is she talking about? And you know, and it's scary. It was really scary in the first 15 minutes. Like, it's really messed up scary. And it tells you it hints at what you're in for. In fact, it literally hints at the ending too, about, because you see like her mouth like start to open, and her what's happening to her, but you don't
Full
see.
blown fucking smile.
hmm And then you actually see what happens. Ooh,
Oh dang it! I did not mean to make that the background.
that was a jump scare that creeps me the fuck out. It really does. That's how good this movie is at establishing, because it is immediately creepy. Like, smiles are creepy. Anyone who smiles like that is creepy. And so
This is the girl in the opening scene that we're talking about.
yeah,
Yeah, it like just straight up crazy, man.
unnerving as fuck, and it's just, oh my god, and a perfect way to start your movie. That smile is going to be in your brain the whole movie, and you're going to be looking for that smile, and that's what you do. Like, the movie plays with you, it messes with you the viewer, because you're looking for that smile, and and everybody who she talks to, and that if you see it, it's there.
And that smile, you don't know whether it's real or not. That like throughout the entire movie, you don't know what is actually happening, what's not actually happening until she wakes up, and it's because when she ran into that psych ward and killed old dude, I was like, yo. But then I had to remember, I was like, oh well, it's probably in her head. And sure enough, she wakes up in her car. Then dude, they even had Cal Penn in this movie, man. Fucking Harold and Kumar. Come on, man.
It was just like, so, like, he was, every time I saw, and that's not saying he didn't do a good job, he did. It's just saying I can't help but like he's just comic relief, and like, he's such a nice guy. I can't help but think, it's like, where's your boy? You're supposed to be going to White Castle,
Oh man. So I want to ask you, Jake, man, where would you I would actually, before I even ask you where you would rank this movie, or like where would you kind of hold this movie in terms of like regards of horror, what grade would you give this movie?
I'd probably give it a. It's a tough one, because even though I do have a lot to like,
And we're going A through F.
Yeah, A through F.
The old film panel ratings.
It's above a B plus, but it's somewhere in between B plus and an A, probably for me, because I do think for when it's good, it's really good. And from where it has its shortcomings, where I felt like, well, this could have been ironed out, this is something that should have been done better, or just wasted opportunities, that they could have, and the ending itself, we kind of having mixed feelings about it. I feel like a B plus is probably the best I could. It's a great movie, for the most part. You're gonna get your money's worth. Please go see it. It's a good movie, well worth your time. But it's definitely, it's just right on the cusp of being like a horror classic. Because I really do think if they really had like more time, maybe if they didn't rush that ending, this could have been like one of the.
And this movie's almost 2 hours. That's the thing. It's like, why would you even some of it? You could cut out some of these things. I would say you don't cut out the therapist scene, because that is my favorite scene. That one, and then a close second would be the opening scene.
Yeah.
But that therapist scene was actually very, very well done, because I wasn't expecting that. Because you kept calling. I mean, you kept seeing where she was calling. The therapist was calling her, and she was ignoring it. She was ignoring it. She was ignoring it. And then all of a sudden, she sits down, and a therapist is right in front of her, and then she gets the call and picks up, and it's the therapist. So, and then she starts chasing her, and then that whole thing.
And that smile creeps across the face. Perfect. You couldn't have done it better. The scene wrote itself, and also before I forget it, the opening scene it was actually my close second. My favorite scene in the movie is the first time she has an illusion. It was when she broke some shit, and the alarm started going off. Remember? And
Yep.
she picked up the phone, and she said, like she said, "Is there anyone in the house?" And it's like, "No, there isn't." And then it says, "Are you sure? Are you sure you haven't let anything in, Rose?" Fuck. And then it says, "Turn around." Fucking chills. Like that is so. That's the part that got me the most. Just like, ugh, like just like that's. And then it was a fake out. She doesn't even have the phone in her hand, and that more than I think anything sets up the fact that you can't trust what she fucking sees. You can't
Mhm.
trust anything in this movie.
No, because old
After
dude
that
popped up
point.
right after that.
Yep. Just, but I feel like that's the scene that probably scared me the most. My favorite scene in the movie, and it scared me the most. And and after that, like you said, and then it continues to play on that note that and if you do trust what you're seeing, you're an idiot because it's like it lets you know you don't
Don't
do it,
trust. Yeah.
don't trust it, don't look behind you, don't do what it says.
My biggest critique of this movie is that there just weren't enough deaths, man. Like to me, when it comes to horror, like if it's super well done, I don't really care about kill count. But I mean, this movie, don't get me wrong, it was well done. I'm about to get my grade here in a second.
Yeah.
But if it was like if this entire movie was that chef's kiss of what that one
Mhm.
the therapist scene,
Yeah.
then I could probably say that okay, maybe you could get away with not having as many deaths. But I'm like, for a movie that had the stars that it had, the well-known, at least the well-known actors that it had, and you mean to tell me you barely killed any of them? You barely like nothing. She burned bridges with the guy, the sister and the husband. Nothing happened with them, and then you don't really explain. I mean, there's still like messed up dialogue where it's like, if I had a kid and my sibling, their aunt or uncle, gave them and traumatized them now with a dead pet as a present, I feel like the dialogue would be a bit different after that movie than
Yeah.
when it was 20 minutes after they had that event and she's showing up on the front door and then it's a whole. But that's my biggest critique of the whole movie, to be honest. I mean, other than that rust, like you said, the rushed ending, especially for a
Mhm.
movie that's as long as it is, because your average horror movie is maybe an hour and 20, something like that. Average horror movie is not 2 hours. This movie was damn near 2 hours, an hour and 50, hour and 50 something minutes,
Yeah.
and you rush the last 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah,
I felt like you could have
exactly.
kind of replaced the unneeded dialogue with more depth into why she's having these visions, why she's going in and out of reality when it comes to her mental state. Because, like you said, the director's letting you know, the directors and the writers and whoever's behind this whole shit let you know up front, do not trust what you are seeing until it is confirmed. And
Mhm.
well, like I said, pretty good movie. But my grade that I'm gonna grade Smile of 2022, I'm gonna have to give this movie a solid C plus. Um, like I said, reason being, look, it's not a bad movie. It's not it's not a what do I
Mhm.
say, a great movie, but it's really good, really
Yeah.
good. It's one really good scene away from being in a great movie. I'll say
Yeah.
that. But like I
Yeah.
said before, this is a movie that it seems like one of these movies that if it came out in the 70s, it would have been recommended to me by like Mark Platt 3 years ago when we were doing the film panel. Like it was like one of those cult classic, like check out you remember how he talked like, oh, check out this movie, and it'd be some hole in the wall fucking horror movie you never heard of, but then you watch it and you're like, holy shit. The
Yeah.
writer of this movie was thinking of some really, really good shit back
Mhm.
in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, because you had those kind of writers um that were still writing original shit and kind of fleshing it out to kind of see, just putting anything and everything out there, and you had the production studios behind it. You had production studios would be like, "Hey, you got an idea? We'll fucking put it out." Especially when it came to horror, because they're trying to look for the next horror icon. They're trying to look for the next horror, franchise that they can. Especially in the '80s, man, they were popping them shits out like crazy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it was, it's that kind of industry. We really still live in that kind of industry too. It's the same thing. It hasn't changed that much, just in the way they have to kind of deliver it, and the way they have to kind of pitch it. And
I'll give them credit though. The horror genre, I'll give credit that at least as much as they try and grab IPs, like you hear about what they're trying to do with Halloween franchise, they're trying to make into a streaming show now. Again, that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother fucking rabbit hole. That'll just piss me off anyways. That putting Michael Myers on television is like putting Batman on television. You just don't fucking do it. But anyways, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. I think that what production studios are doing now, especially with A24, like they are investing more into original ideas. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. These production studios are still trying to get these larger IPs and milk them to every fucking last drop. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I will say you are seeing more original ideas and original movies coming from the horror genre, which I'm happy to see.
Yeah.
Whether I like these movies or not, like I said, like we're getting a little too much into the paranormal shit, which I've never like. Other than the first few Paranormal Activity movies, I'm not a real big paranormal guy when it comes to horror movies. Now, paranormal in real life, I'm down, but when we're talking horror movies, they don't scare me.
It's hard to scare you with something that you already have trouble kind of believing anyway, because and it's such an easy thing to do in horror nowadays. What's hard to do is to scare me using things like this, I guess. Like Smile is really, I guess it uses a lot of horror conventions anyway. But if you really look at it, it doesn't really do anything wholesale new. It just takes some older ideas and kind of repurposes them in an interesting way. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing. That's just art kind of borrows from art. And because, if you look at it, the plot itself is a lot like The Ring, but instead of seeing a tape and you'll die in 7 days, you see someone kill themselves and you'll die in 7 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then a lot of that kind of, it's similar. And it's also similar to like It Follows too, in that regard too. Like, just it's something that just it follows you. Just it's something you can't get rid of. And just the way the monster works. And even though it's not like, originality is how can you spin it in a way that's unique? How can you spin it in a way that makes me rethink it? And I think Smile, if anything, it definitely takes these kind of, because it's horror. Horror, there's really not a whole lot of different ways you can do horror that is a wholesale original. It's a monster. Okay, most of the time there's a monster or there's some kind of boogeyman in the closet that the characters have got to deal with, and that's at its core. That's always going to be at the core of the horror genre, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's given way to a lot of artists to kind of play with and follow an idea. And but you see the thematic, what the themes play and how the artist can take those themes in the different directions. And It Follows, it's about sex and sexually transmitted diseases. It follows you, you know what I mean? Or
like movie Philadelphia.
A remake of Philadelphia is what It Follows.
Yo, have you seen that? Yeah, this is way off topic, but have you seen that that robot chicken skit of Philadelphia?
No, I don't think I have, but I could probably imagine how it goes down.
That was with Tom Hanks, right?
Yeah, the one where Tom Hanks was, and it was following. Yeah, that's the movie with Tom Hanks where there's this STD demon following him around, and yeah, and then the sequel to that came like 30 years later in a movie called It Follows, Philadelphia, but it had the working title of Philadelphia 2, and Jesus, that was like a distasteful. Dallas Buyers Club, yeah, they're all canon.
I I I don't know if I can ever bring myself to watch that fucking movie, dude. I heard it's really good.
It is. I've always heard it's a really great movie, and it's really and it's it's a drama, of course, and it's in all seriousness, yeah, it really is a good movie. You should watch it if you wanted to watch something more serious. Um, but
Because I like Jared Leto, I like Matthew McConaughey, but I'm like, oh, I don't know if I really want to watch a movie about that because it just doesn't appeal to me. Like I'm just like, it's just like me trying to watch Bros. Like at the end of the day, I'm like, I just don't want to watch it.
I still want to watch it.
Since we are kind of on the whole not watching thing, I do kind of want to pick your brain here. I mean, this is a movie discussion, so it's not like we're off topic.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you this question though, because it actually came up on Twitter the other day.
Mm-hmm.
It said, name one movie that you think is a great movie, but you'll only watch once. Like you only see once, but you won't watch it again. But you loved it. Do you have a movie like that? I've got a few, and I thought I was the only person in the world that actually did that.
Yeah,
but it's crazy. People did that, so that was something I never really thought of, but I've done it for a long time actually.
I could do that too. Like I don't like. There's some movies I don't need to watch again for different reasons. And I'd say the one that came to my mind when you asked that, it actually is a kind of a horror movie too. Well, it is a horror movie. I think it's a total, but it's a movie that really, really I don't ever want to watch again. It's called. You probably might know it. It had Robin Williams. It's called 1 Hour Photo. I think is what it's called.
Man. Okay.
It's
Damn,
pull it.
That's a throwback.
You know that one?
Yeah, I don't remember seeing it though. I don't think I saw that one. I love Robin Williams. Don't get me wrong.
That one,
Robin Williams, but I didn't see all of his movies. 1 Hour Photo. I think I missed that movie.
That one is one that when you watch it, and it literally, I think it's probably one of the most. I don't know, especially seeing him and playing that kind of a role, just because it hurts your heart, to see him playing a role like that, and it's really just a very it's a fucking scary movie, but it's also a really sad movie, and he plays it so good. He deserved an Oscar for it. That's how good he played it. And
check that out.
Deeply unsettling movie. It's called 1 Hour Photo. And like I said, you'll love it because it's a deeply well-made movie. Deeply well-made. It is a total masterpiece in a lot of ways. But it's a movie you don't want to watch again because it kind of takes you to a bad place.
Okay. I felt that way as well. Like, I spoke about 13 Reasons Why earlier. And I thought that would be a show. Like when I first, you got to think Netflix was kind of different. It wasn't as woke as it is now 6 years ago or whenever that first season of 13. I think I was still living back in Virginia when the first season of 13 Reasons Why came out. But I thought that was going to be a show like that where I was going to watch it. I already knew just because of subject matter, I'm like, there's no way I'm really going to actually watch this a second time. But I've been hearing good things about it. They've been hyping it up, beasting it up. So I watched that first season and I was highly disappointed. Like it highlighted the worst shit of the worst shit. And I was just like, this is a terrible show to fucking watch. But so I completely understand where you're coming from because the movies for me, I actually have a few movies like that. A Star is Born. I think that is a great movie. But I'll never see it again.
Yeah.
Another movie like that was Joker. I think Joker
Yeah.
is a freaking masterpiece. But first of all, they're fucking it up by making a fucking sequel. And second of all, I don't know. It's just it's one of those movies that I don't want to say I'll never watch it again, but it's not one of those movies that I would. That even when it came on, when it went away from theaters and came on digital, I didn't run to go watch it because it's one of those movies where I'm like, it was great for what it's. Now, if it had Batman in it, different
Yeah.
story. You know,
Yeah.
different story. I would watch that movie probably a million times, but
Mhm.
it's not a movie that's supposed to be a comic book movie. You know what I mean? It's a movie that's supposed to tackle real world issues and emotional, mental, all kinds of issues. And what? Oh yeah.
Get that in there. You got to get that in.
Oh yeah. You know, I think I would do. I would just get that clip of Jamie Lee Curtis just constantly saying that on that whole rollout for Halloween ends.
Oh,
Trouble. That's all it was. But but yeah, look, I mean, Joker, Jojo Rabbit was another one, dude.
mm,
I don't know if you saw that movie. It was directed by Taika Waititi, surprisingly. Um, and that movie's so good, man. I
yeah.
really, actually, really enjoyed that movie, Jojo Rabbit. But it's one of those movies that I feel like I can't watch again. Same thing with Boy in Striped Pajamas. I can't watch
Yeah.
that shit again.
Oh,
Great
dude.
movie. Can't
Great.
watch that again. Peanut
That's
butter.
one.
Was it, no, what? Yeah, Peanut Butter Falcon.
Yeah. There's a lot of movies like that I feel like you know, and that it's just like you only need to really see once because I mean if you do watch it again, you'd have to be in the right mindset. There's definitely a lot of movies like you said, Boy in Striped Pajamas, Come and See. That's another really grim movie that just kind of you have to be in a mindset that wants to go into a dark place and really
Speaking of
think and
Robin
reflect.
Williams, Good Will Hunting.
Oh yes, that's and but to be fair, I've watched that movie many times. It's different for everybody though. Some people really don't like to watch a movie that's about sort of heavy kind of therapy things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I think that movie is so approachable, and that it is worth another watch too. Even if you have to make yourself, it's worth another watch.
And
Especially,
that's another thing too. Like, this is why I love having you on here too, because just the similarities and the differences as well. Just because you start to realize you're like, oh yeah, I'm not the only person that thinks like this when it comes to, you know what I'm saying?
yep,
And because my trauma when it comes to movies is romance movies. Like I've always had bad luck when it comes to romance, so I just refuse to watch romantic movies. I just can't. That's why I hate. That's not why I hate superhero movies that have romantics, but it's just like, bruh, I
yeah,
can't. You cannot force me to sit here and watch a love story. Now, again, there's exceptions like A Star Is Born. There's exceptions, like Hitch back in the day, but I don't really think that was really too romantic of a movie. That's more like a comedy.
yeah,
But you know
yeah.
what I mean, like stuff like that.
Pure romances and all that.
Yeah. But I mean, when it comes to horror, action, I have no limits, man. The only limits that I have when it comes to horror is that shit that, uh, not to keep bringing Mark up, but we're talking about the film panel, So Mark and Smith are probably going to come up time to time, but just because of
Hmm.
2 years of doing this shit. But what that movie that Mark recommended was I think it's called Girls that we reviewed one time, and I was just like, bro, what the? It's like sex and horror. Like I just can't do that. When I watch a movie, I want to watch a movie for an actual movie and for plot and all
Yeah,
that other stuff.
I
But
don't like the
action and horror. Other than that, I have no limits when it comes to action and horror. Like I watch anything, any kind of whatever the fuck. Like, cause again, you can kind of get me away from plot if the action is good enough. You can kind of get me. No, you can't get me fully away from plot unless I know you have your movies like Mortal Kombat, where people are like, it has no story, but it's just like, well, what kind of story do you
Do you
want with
need?
Mortal Kombat? Watch because the action.
Exactly.
So you have your exceptions. And horror, you have your exceptions as well. It's just sadly enough, the new Halloween trilogy, didn't have enough plot and didn't have enough killing and action for me to actually accept that being a good movie, a good franchise, or a
Yep.
good pick
Right.
for
Yeah.
a trilogy, because it just
Not
wasn't.
not good enough. Yeah, it's
No.
not enough to warrant its existence in a lot of ways. And like he's and you know and you also find like and then in a more lighthearted sense, there's still other movies that I think are good too that I've never really watched it. Also, I don't know if you do this either, but it's like sometimes you just seen a movie so much or you just grew up with it. It's kind of like Indiana Jones. Everyone remembers it. I love Indiana Jones. It was a great movie. I remember I quoted to a friend of mine just how much um like dude, the original Indiana Jones, that's the best movie that I'm probably never gonna watch again. It's just,
Ooh.
I could
Ooh.
literally it's a movie I could probably literally replay in my head note for note. Like it's just like I don't ever need to watch it again. I'm too familiar with
A
it.
movie now, Forrest Gump to me, everybody says Citizen Kane is the greatest movie of all time, by standards. To me, it's Forrest Gump. It's not my favorite movie of all time. It's one of my
Yeah,
favorite movies of all time. But I hold it as to be one of the greatest movies of all time. But in my
it is.
sense, the greatest movie of all time.
Yeah,
Um,
it is.
because it's a roller coaster of emotion. It's the first movie that I ever watched, other than The Lion King, as a kid, where it's nothing but a roller coaster of emotions. The entire fucking movie, and that's one movie I have not seen Forrest Gump as an adult. I watched it so many times as a kid.
Yeah,
That movie, Never Back Down, it's an MMA movie. I saw that so many times when that movie came out. I had it on DVD, watched it so many fucking times. Like I probably still know that movie line for line. Um, this is embarrassing. The original Twilight, the first Twilight movie. I
yeah.
watched that movie so many fucking times. Um, look, man, I was a fan of the. I was a fan of the franchise. I don't know what to say, man. Like
Hey man,
again, if I was 20 and that movie came out, it'd be a different story. But I was like 12, 13 when that movie came
hey
out.
man. I one day I'm gonna give it a chance, and I think we've talked about it in the past that we gotta, we are gonna like talk about it one day.
You got to see Twilight, man. You might like it. Now, again, watching it at 30, I don't know, man, because it might be one of those things where it's like you're already an adult. You already kind of have this preconceived notion. You already saw Robert Pattinson as Batman. I mean, and then you see him in this role, and it might, I don't know.
And that's a romantic.
Yeah, we should talk about Twilight because I still like that franchise. I don't care what anybody says. Team
Well,
Jacob all the way.
I have a lot to say about the. I actually have a lot to say about it, even though I've never like seen the movie. I would like to actually see the movie so I can have more frame of reference. But just the cultural impact it had was so
Yes.
big. Like it's undeniable. Twilight was a thing, and we love it or hate it. I mean, it had its mark.
And
And
I think the reason why I ran to that franchise so hard is because as a kid, I grew up in like a really Christian household. So my mom wouldn't let us watch Harry Potter. And I remember
yeah,
Harry Potter was a huge fucking deal when I was a kid. Everybody watched it. Everybody was going to the book fair at school, getting the books and stuff. My mom refused to let us. Like Harry Potter was like extra no, like a
yeah,
capital No. Like she would,
witchcraft.
yeah, it literally was like one of those things where she was like, it's a whole bunch of shit with Harry Potter. And so when I was a teenager, and then Twilight came out, and I was like, yo, I like vampires. I always like vampires. I always like wizards and stuff like that. But I didn't really get too much into wizards until I started playing more video games and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
when it came to vampires, that was my shit, man. Vampires, zombies,
yeah.
that's my shit. So I was like, yo, let me see what this is all about. Watch that first Twilight movie. I was again, you're thinking 12, 13. So My Chemical Romance, Paramore had just came out too. Like, man, that's my bag right there. I was like, yo, I'm all for this Twilight. I was the only dude in, but still,
There's a
Twilight.
couple. You may have similar childhoods too. Like there was a couple of just emo,
Yeah.
dudes, listening to what was it,
My
Avenged
mom wasn't pushing
Sevenfold
me.
and shit. You know,
I was definitely a emo soul man at that time, bro. At least when it came to like the culture, maybe not the lifestyle, but the culture. Yeah,
yeah.
most
It was
definitely.
just emo. But yeah, and agreed, and you know, just watching how kind of it's evolved back away from that too. Like the whole era of horror movies then
Mm-hmm.
kind of was like at its peak about weird romances and horror. Like I would even go, it's like The Shape of Water kind of was in that similar vein too, because it was about, you know, a monster and a human being falling in love. I felt like, because you know, there's a parallel there too.
That won a bunch of Oscars. I never seen it.
Guillermo del Toro, I think, directed that, and I actually had never seen it either, but I know about it and I've seen enough of it, and I knew exactly what it was going to be, because it was sort of about, you know, that sort of, again, that whole, like, the 2010s was about sort of the the sort of the humanization of monsters. You know,
Mhm.
you had Warm Bodies, a zombie. You know, just about, you
I
know.
was going to mention that too because that had not Nick. Was it Nicholas Holt?
mm, I think it was,
I always get him
and
and Ed Screen mixed up, but yeah, Nicholas Holt played the zombie in that movie. Warm
mm,
Bodies was a really good movie too, man.
yeah, it's a good
Dude,
movie.
this may not be. I don't think this would classify as horror. Actually, wait, hold up. Before I even say anything, let me double check and make sure that this movie classified as horror, because if not, I'm like a fucking idiot. But would you classify Zombieland as a horror movie, or
Mm,
is that more? I mean, because you got a comedy element, you could maybe
yeah,
say action thriller esque,
horror
but it's
comedy.
mostly comedy than anything.
Yeah, I'd say horror comedy more than anything, and that's not a bad thing to call it either, because horror comedy is been around a long time. Return of the Living Dead, Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of
There,
the Dead. Oh my god, dude, you're taking me so. Shaun of the Dead. You do. You talk now. You're talking my language. Now you're talking my language. Go to when did that come out? 2008 or
4.
something like that? Four. Okay, because I
Mm,
saw that movie on another TV movie I watched. First time I watched it was on Comedy Central, bro. Comedy
yeah,
fucking Central was the first time I saw that movie.
yeah.
That is
That
nuts.
dude, I'd probably say, I'd probably even go as far to say Shaun of the Dead is one of, not just one of my favorite horror movies, but one of my favorite movies ever too. It really is, like this.
Simon Pegg was so good. Who's that fat dude that's always with him? The
Nick
chubby guy.
Castle, Nick
Cat.
Castle.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, those two have done a lot of movies together, and they need
Yes,
to,
they've done
because
a
they're
lot of them.
one of
Hot
my favorite.
Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz. That's one of the funniest movies ever, in my opinion. I just, at World's End was good. I liked that World's End, but Paul, remember Paul? You know, about the alien, the little Seth Rogen alien.
I didn't see that one. Huh.
Oh, dude, that's the one. That's a good one too. It's very funny, and a lot of people don't remember Paul. You know, but check it out. Paul, that had Simon Pegg, Nick Castle as a duo, and they were they met this alien. His name is Paul, and he's voiced by Seth Rogen. And it was a good movie. It was a good comedy, and
No.
but and the funny thing is, most of the movies that Simon Pegg and Nick Castle, they were in movies that Edgar Wright directed.
Mhm.
You know, he
Yeah.
directed all three: Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and At World's End. And I don't know what Edgar Wright's been up to lately, but it seems like it's about time those three, you know, got the got back on the saddle. We need a new movie from those guys.
Didn't Edgar Wright do one of the Ant-Man movies too?
He did. I think he was going to, but then he like backed out.
Yeah, yeah, something like that.
The last movie I heard of him
Oh
doing was
yeah, he
called,
did Scott Pilgrim. I'm looking at his IMDb. He did Scott Pilgrim versus the World, bro. I didn't know he did that.
yeah, it was a great movie. And I'd even go as far as say that was one of the best movies of the 2010s. Like, it was a
Mhm.
really great movie that deserves so much more credit. And the most recent movie I think he directed was Baby Driver, and I haven't seen that one, but I heard it was really good.
I heard
And
it was really good.
I think he's working on something now. I forget what he was working on though.
He wrote the first Ant-Man, but he didn't direct it.
Yeah, he didn't direct it. I know that, and I think he was going to, but then he backed out.
Yeah, then he ended up, yeah.
And no, he's a talented, he's a gifted director. Like I really wish he would make more movies in general. And then and after that, I think, but yeah, horror comedy, as a whole. We kind of we got off that subject, and I didn't know what we went into. We got into horror comedy, but I don't know what we went into that from where. Like I don't know. Like we just talk about it in general.
We touch on everything, man.
Yeah, how we do. It's half-assed. What do you want from us?
Never facts. But yeah, thank you guys for coming through, man, and joining us here as we talk about Smile. And we always derail the conversations with other conversations, but we kept it in terms of movies, so we're all good. The next movie we are going to be reviewing is going to be Halloween 4. To be determined will be the day and time. It'll most likely be in the evening time, but we don't know what day yet, so stay tuned for that. I'll probably put something out on my socials in terms of a day and time for that one. But dude, I had a lot of fun tonight, man. It's been a long time. I wouldn't say it's been a long time because Heavy J and I we did some reviews of some shows as well from Prime. We've done Bel Air as well from Peacock. But look, man, we're gonna be doing a lot of movies. I wouldn't say like too many, but we're gonna do quite a few movie reviews this month. But Halloween 4 is next. I already got my 2, at least. So I got Halloween 4, and I got one of the Saw movies. I'm trying to figure out right now which Saw movie I want to review, and I'll let you know obviously ahead of time. Okay. But and I think your next one that you picked was Shining, right? So we're at least gonna do Halloween 4, Shining, and a Saw movie this month. Yeah. So stay tuned for that. I haven't seen the original cut of The Shining. I've only seen the TV version, which I watched as a kid, and it was disturbing as a kid. But as an adult, I'm sure I'll get over. Nothing really scares me or fucks me up or anything like that as an adult. Again, unless it's a romance movie, a romantic movie.
Yep.
Those movies, they fuck me up. But other than that, man, no horror movie is really gonna mess me up, or and everything like that. So I'm down for whatever you throw at me. But yeah, make sure you guys hit that like, that subscribe, and Jake, where can people find you, man?
I am, of course, trying to be more regular on my channel, which is at 253 subscribers, and and it's I'm still and I'm still doing good on that as far as like trying to be more punctual and keep more content coming, and life's been busy. I do want to post more. I wish I could post more. And of course, again, like my Twitter, if anyone wants to, shout at me, feel free. And of course, like doing the the half-ass and the film panel. I'm glad the film panel's back. And this is
at least for a month.
At least for a month.
Hey, who knows? We might get some views and hey, like I'm saying, hit the likes. Hit them, subscribe, and make sure you guys view the shit. Leave us some feedback, because I want to. My plan for the whole thing, not to cut you off, but my plan for the whole thing is, I want to kind of do what we did with the fan panel, which I want to kind of like at least give you guys like a 2-day notice and put it out on all my socials. Like, hey, in 2 days we're gonna be talking about this movie. That way, people, if they want to join in on the conversation, they can watch the movie ahead of time. Because we don't do reviews, we just do discussions. That's what we did tonight, just discussion on the movie. Not sitting here reviewing scene by scene by scene and all that other shit. That's what all these other YouTubers do. I just want to sit here and talk about the movie, how great it is or how bad it is, or even both, like we did tonight, where we kind of like met in the middle of it. It was one of the good and bad. But yeah,
very good stuff like that for because that's what we enjoy doing this, and even though it's like we do appreciate views and subscribers, and we love it when you guys come and watch. You got to keep in mind that this is definitely what we enjoy doing. We love talking about, movies. We love movies and wrestling, of course, and then horror movies specifically is like, this is why October is a really fun time for us, because we're talking about, because all like our childhood, we get to talk about the movies we grew up with, and then
Back when film was film, when these movies, film has always had agendas and stuff like that. But here's the difference: it wasn't down your throat. It wasn't all in your face. It was at least somewhat subtle, at least for the most part. You had your other movies that were obviously had their agendas and stuff, but dude, back when film was film, man, the 90s, the 2000s.
Dude, I miss it so much because subtlety has now become like such a concept that no one understands. Yeah, like, dude, I could totally get the whole. I'll get it more if you let me figure it out for myself instead of you spoon feeding me, or as
single scene.
Exactly, and my girlfriend pointed something out about info dumping in movies, and there's too many movies that feel the need to just say it out loud, just like, no, let the audience chew on it, let them figure it, think about what, and that's the best kind of movie. It doesn't tell you what it's about; it lets you have your own meaning for it, and I think that's. And to Smiles, if I could say the last thing I could say about Smile, is that it does well enough, and that's the reason why it'll probably be stuck in my crawl, is because it does well enough to let you kind of get in there. Give it room for you to worm your brain in there and kind of figure out, well, what did that mean?
Yep.
And that's what a good horror movie does.
Exactly. And to carry off of what Jake said too, like, don't take what I said, like I'm doing this, like we're not doing this for likes or anything like that. What I'm saying is the film panel is back for right now, but the film panel can continue if we see that people are watching our stuff and hitting that like button.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're not hitting the like button, at least give us some feedback. Hit us up in the comments. Did you watch the movie? What do you think of the movie? Stuff like that. But yeah, so pretty much if I get pretty good feedback with this, like in terms of likes and stuff like that, which is not why we do this, but this might keep the film panel on and we'll find more movies to talk about because there's plenty of movies for us to, including Twilight.
Exactly.
I never thought I'd be talking about Twilight at 30 years old, but here I am talking about Twilight at 30 years old.
Here we are. Hey man, it's 30. I don't mind. Hey, I feel like that's what we're supposed to be doing. Thinking about all these things that happened to us before then. Twilight was one of the things that happened to us.
Yep. Facts. Yeah. But yeah, make sure you guys hit that like, that follow here on Rumble. Make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube as well. Shout out to Heavy J. You guys will be seeing us back on Comrades for another episode here soon. Go over there, hit that like, subscribe, go over to Jake's socials. Follow him, hit the subscribe on his YouTube channel as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back here on the HAP Film Panel for another horror movie review this month. But in the meantime, it's Brother Jake, it's your boy Corn, and we are OU.